happening somewhere else and it is my highest pleasure and privilege to introduce you to Dr. María Elena Gómez Parra, who is a catedrática, which is full professor rank, the highest rank possible in the University of Córdoba in Spain. Córdoba, which happens to be also the beautiful city where I originate from. María Elena focuses in her trajectory in studies about bilingualism and intercultural education. She's actually quite well versed in these matters through the research projects that she's conducting in the context of Spain and also the European Union. One of the, for example, excellent. I mean, you get to really see the full depth and implications of this when you are in that context. That she's running one of the Mundus programs in Europe, which is she gets to run an international master's program, which is supported with European Union funds. I mean, again, when you are in that context, you're like, wow, it's almost like they give you that's quite a recognition about the trajectory and the work that you have been doing. Elena as well also publishes she's a very prolific writer, and she writes on these matters, every area of interest of bilingual education, or clearly that we are going to get to hear about it today, and she disseminates her knowledge wherever she goes. Just yesterday, for example, she was presenting to my students at San Jose State. Essentially, Elena is beyond being an academic and a thinker and quite a practitioner of what she says. She's a nice person to hang out with. I'm telling you, she's fun. She's a good person. She is gonna give you the best tips. She has a big heart, to the point that, of course, I mean, it shines through the screen of where she is right now. And she was also my professor. Again, if I know something about discourse analysis, is because I learned it from her. So that's even another reason to show that particular appreciation. So without further ado, we get to learn from you now, Elena. We are gonna switch screens to you, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Eduardo. I'm really pleased to be here, and it's my honor to be here with your students and my students in Córdoba, who will be also sharing this. We will be sharing this presentation with them, and also the series. And thank you for inviting me. I'm really delighted to be here in California, which I consider my second home. So thank you very much for making me a part of this, and listening to your beautiful words about me is always a pleasure. So I think this is one of the reasons why I always accept invitations from California people, which is lovely. So again, thanks to all of you for being here today with us. And I would like to start my presentation by telling you what I'm going to talk about, because it's going to be about this beautiful title that Eduardo helped me build. It was, I mean, it has to do with...
I think, sorry to interrupt, we are seeing the presenter's view. So
sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, so...
Now we are seeing
let me try again. Thank you for saying, Eduardo. It was lovely.
Sorry to interrupt. Thank you.
No, it was lovely. Thank you very much for saying. How about now?
We are seeing the presenter's panel only.
Only. And how? I don't know why it's so messy. Because I'm sharing my screen and I don't want to know. Why is it? How about, let's see now. How about now?
That's perfect.
That's it. And that's it. Okay.
The outline.
Oh, yeah. So let me start about here. Now I think you can see the first slide. Okay, the title. So I was saying that the title, which is Resting Our Case, Student Voices and Perspectives on Bilingual Education Benefits, is a presentation on the first results of a research project that we were granted by the Spanish Ministry of Science and Innovation. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we have found out, and what are the main ideas behind this beautiful title that I said before, Eduardo helped me build. So the outline, as you can see, it has a very traditional structure of the presentation of research. And let me say that my presentation is going to be less boring than it seems. And let me also say that I will stop every now and then to make questions, and I hope you can participate. You can give your, I would like to listen to you, because for me it's very interesting to see what you think about what is happening at the other side of this of the Atlantic. And also in the conclusions, as you can see, I have written to interrogation mark, a question mark, to see that if you can help me build these conclusions, because I think it's going to be quite interesting to see what you think about this. So let me start by summarizing that the scientific literature has internationally analyzed the benefits of bilingual education at all levels: cognitive and neurolinguistics, for example, Baker or Fricke; social and intercultural, for example, Fielding and Hartborn; academic, for example, Hensley; occupational, Callahan and Patricia Gander; on economic, Fry and Lowell. On the other hand, there are also international organizations, as we will see in the next slide, that issue reports indicating that bilingual education represents a magnificent opportunity for millions of students in the 21st century, because, as Cara explains, there are more bilinguals in the world than monolingual, a statement that years later Russia supports and expands, as you can read there in the slides. Because, I mean, bilingual education and multilingual education is a fact nowadays in the world. Let me say that what you call here in the States multilingual is what we call in Europe plurilingual. It's the same concept, the name is different. So we will be referring sometimes to multi or sometimes to pluri, but we mean the same thing, right? Speakers who can manage, who can control, who can use different codes, although in different situations and at different levels, right? This is what we call pluri and what you in the States call multilingual, right? So the OCDE and the UNESCO, yes, that's it, sorry. The OCDE and the UNESCO understand that access to second languages is an educational parameter of equity that allows individuals to adapt to the changes of the 21st century. One of the causes of which is, according to these reports, the increase in immigration and the resulting diversity. This idea is also shared by Ofelia Garcia when she speaks about translanguages as a case of language justice. The UNICEF in 2019 states that there are other factors that are rarely measured or reported associated with even larger equity gaps. For example, disability, mother tongue instructions, ethnic group, displacement, and subnational differences. Explaining that today there are theories such as translanguaging that defend the concept of one language rather than diverse linguistic compartments, which encourages the use of that language in the classroom, regardless of whether the sounds, words, or concepts used at a given moment come from one or the other named languages, as Ofelia Garcia and Ricardo Otegui call them. So learning a second language, therefore, offers individuals access to more information, cognitive flexibility, the opportunity to communicate with more speakers, better jobs opportunities, and higher salaries. It is not surprising, therefore, that institutional organizations such as UNESCO, the OECD, and UNICEF, for example, establish this link and point to it as a path in education system that must be followed to achieve the levels of quality demanded by society, as well as a warranty of educational quality and equity. The 21st century is witnessing unprecedented progress in the study and implementation of bilingual and multilingual education programs worldwide. Not only have the most relevant international organizations, as we have seen, explicitly stated their first commitment to bilingual education, but also national governments and therefore educational systems worldwide are betting on an educational model whose proven benefits have been demonstrated by the scientific literature, as we have already advancing, and which, for example, is collected by Ellen Bialystok in 2018. Today, the different approaches to bilingual and multilingual education show an interesting variety around the world, because bilingual education is almost as old as mankind. Let me remember that the capacity of a bilingual mind has fascinated civilizations such as the Egyptian, Sumerian, or Chinese since immemorial. as Heredia and McLaughlin in 1992 recall. So we are not inventing the wheel. Bilingual education started more than 20 centuries ago and is still here. So let me say that in dealing with different models of bilingual education, reading the quotation from the Council of Europe, it should be borne in mind that this form of education has proven its effectiveness in numerous situations throughout the world. This concerns the proficiency in both languages, second language only in transitional programs, as well as the resource in the different topics taught through another language. And also Eurydice in Europe, which is also the official approach to education, to bilingual education in Europe, is CLIL, and is content and language integrated learning. And they say, in this context, the European Union has launched several initiatives in the field of bilingual education through the CLIL approach. One of the first inescapable European cooperation on CLIL is the 1995 Council resolution, which refers to the promotion of innovative methods, and in particular to the teaching of foreign languages in classes where bilingual education is provided of subjects other than languages. So what in 1995, what CLIL brought to Europe was, this approach where we integrate language and content in the same classroom. Therefore, the support that bilingual and multilingual education receive from the scientific community and from international education policies is unquestionable and is warranted by reasons of a social, economic, and educational nature, which leaves no doubt about the relevance of the implementation of bilingual and multilingual programs at the international level, making research in this area a global issue of great importance. Thus, the next step was to analyze the implementation of bilingual programs. Both nationally and internationally, the analysis of the effectiveness of bilingual and multilingual programs focuses on specific areas of bilingual education, for example, academic or cognitive factors of participating students, national educational policies focusing on specific contents or levels, for example, arts or natural sciences in primary, secondary, or even tertiary education, or a comparison between international schools, which in the best of cases leads to suggestions for improvement that are not usually applicable in other contexts due to the limitations of the study itself and of the specificity of the educational context. So research helps, but it's not, up to now, it's not the key. Ofelia Garcia stated, on the other hand, that research in the area should address comparative studies that include bilingual speakers with different language level, and not only those with a native or near native level of bilingualism. Let me remind that Kroll and de Groot in 2009 argue that nearly 6,000 languages in the world will contribute to actual bilingualism of most people in the 21st century. And Prashad and Vogt demonstrate in 2017 that bilingual schools are not the cause of the danger that many minority languages are currently in, of being lost or nullified due to the prevalence of dominant languages, where, for example, English and Spanish are located. We speak dominant language, those people who speak Spanish and English. Ofelia Garcia, in 2009, she said, it turns out that although there are more bilingual and multilingual individuals in the world than monolinguals, this idea by Grosjean, and more languages than states, the fact that education takes place in the jure or facto official language means that most children in the world are educated in a language other than that of the home. And Bialy's talk also, follows this idea, and she states, according to some estimates, more than half the world's population is multilingual to some extent. So let me summarize that one of the problems that research finds is that studies should be bigger because it should take a more universal populations so that we can be able to extrapolate conclusions. the studies that we do in a specific context sometimes are not applicable to another specific concept. So we need more data. We need more and a larger number of participants. And also there is a need for research and addresses, on the one hand, an updated and realistic analysis of the effectiveness and benefits of bilingual education from the perspective of the users. That is, students who are pursuing bilingual or multilingual programs. And on the other hand, the impact that bilingual education has on crucial aspects of the 21st century, economic, cultural, and education. So let me summarize the research problems, and I will throw some questions to you. The summary of this idea is that if we agree that bilingual education is today an educational model that has no reverse gear, I cannot imagine a world in the 21st century in which education is not delivered in several languages, since both quantitatively and qualitatively, the model presents benefits proven by the literature. Why the indiscriminate harassment of the press towards bilingual education? If any attendee would like to read an updated study analyzing in blocks the press criticism of bilingual education and demonstrated by going through the scientific literature that the data prove the opposite of what the press says, I can provide you with the shortly published book chapter that I have written on that idea. Therefore, the research team that I lead came up with the idea of asking the users of bilingual education, meaning the students enrolled in these programs, why and what do you think bilingual education is useful for in their lives? Because they are doing a program on bilingual education and they need to, be very clear about what is this bilingual education useful for in a near future. This study that I'm presenting today was funded by the Ministry of Science and Innovation, as I said before, in which we ask a student, what are you using bilingual, or what do you think you will use your bilingual education for? In a word, why is it useful for you? Why are you doing this bilingual education? So I will present you with some data about that. But before I do this, I would like to, say clearly that I have found a very, let's say, annoying current nowadays in the yellow press that they attack bilingual education. And it's not only in Spain, although as you can see, I have collected some press cuts from Spain, but it's not only in Spain. I have found it in many other countries, especially also in the States. So I would like to stop for a moment here and ask you, what do you think about bilingual education in the States? And how do you think the press is dealing with this issue? Do you find also yellow press against bilingual education in the States? The mic is open for any of you who want to contribute.
So this
Hi
is Melissa.
there.
I think that the number of bilingual programs in California far outpaces the number of bilingual programs in my state. I'm currently in Vermont. I came from California, and we do not have bilingual programs at this time. We have educational opportunities to learn another language, but it is not true bilingual education.
Wow, how interesting. And it's because of the policies of the state that you are right now here? Is it?
Yeah, it's the policies of the state and the mindset of the families. Like we may have a Spanish teacher at an elementary school that will provide a certain number of minutes of Spanish education for preschool, kindergarten, up through 6th grade. but they are doing something apart from content learning. And what we know is that the student will learn more if the language is embedded into the content.
Mm.
And if they are given comprehensible input to understand the content in the target language. But this is not the way that students are taught. We are still separating it out, and we are doing songs and games in the target, but for maybe 20 minutes a day, or 20 minutes every other day, or an hour once a week. So it varies from school to school, district to district, but a true understanding of what it means to develop another language is lost on the majority of the population.
Wow. And let me ask Melissa, if you want to continue answering. Is there, have you found on the press some news or articles against bilingual education in the state where you live?
So, especially under this administration, we are hearing more from parents at school board meetings about why do we need to educate our multilingual learners, and why do we need to spend more money on their English education. There's a lot of pushback for languages other than French or German. And this includes Spanish, but it also includes Portuguese. It includes Arabic or Farsi. So it's very divided among racial lines. And I have heard more than one parent at school board meetings and meetings on campus decry the need for these funds to be shared with students who are approaching English fluency.
Yeah. Anyone from California who wants to give their opinion about the policies, the bilingual and multilingual policies here in California? And the press, what the press says? No opinions? Okay, so let me continue. Telling you a little bit more of, I'll give you a flavor of the data that we have found, that we have collected, and so that you have an idea of what we have, right, in Spain. Let me say that the main objective, as I said before, of this research project is the evaluation of the usefulness of bilingual education as perceived by Spanish bilingual students. Let me say that this is very interesting because so far nobody asked students, what do you find it useful? It's very interesting because in any quality system, right? Let me give you an example. If you go, for example, in Spain, and you go to Zara and you're gonna buy a pair of trousers, before you leave the shop, there is a place where you can give your opinion on how your experience in the shop was. But in bilingual programs, nobody asks students, are you happy? Are you satisfied with the results? What will you use it for? So our idea was, let's ask the users of bilingual education what they think bilingual education will be useful for in a near future. So we wanted to compare these expectations with the design of educational programs, because probably it will have an impact. I mean, if students think they will use bilingual education for employability, probably there should be some courses developing employability skills for bilinguals, or even in classroom methodologies, or in assessment of the success of bilingual programs, because we can measure the success of bilingual programs by how much students are happy or not happy with their bilingual education. So we wanted to do this, and we started working. So we designed, let me skip a little bit and go very fast through these slides, which are deeply in methodology, and I don't know to what extent you are very interested in, the methodological design of the study. This is just to say that is scientific. It has been methodologically designed through a very exhaustive process, because I'm the first IP of this project, but the second IP is also a full professor on statistics. And let me say that he's very, very strict on the procedure. So everything has to be methodologically tested and proven, right? So we design a questionnaire to effectively capture students' perception on the usefulness of bilingual education. Then we design a preliminary questionnaire. We establish the 4 dimensions, which are social demographic information, internationalization, employability, intercultural competence, and plurilingual competence. We wanted to question students about or in these areas. Then the survey suffered or went through a Delphi, a round of experts that validated and that gave their opinion on that, and a first pilotage of the student, where we went through 2 groups, 40 students and 325 students, to have the first pilot study of this of the questionnaire. And the validation of the question of the instrument also had a confirmatory factor approach analysis, and the internal consistency was given by the Cronbach alpha. So as you can see, data are very good. And let me say that anything above 0.72, 73 means good score. And in the 4 dimensions that you can see there, we had 0.9 something. So it means, in a word, that we are measuring what we want to measure. The scales are very well constructed according to the statistical analysis, and the complete scale has 0.92 points. So it means very good scale. So in the final scale, we have 21 items from in a 10-point Likert scale. And the study has been approved by the Ethical Committee of Research with Humans from the University of Córdoba. So we have the approval of the university. This is the website where you can find the instrument, and if you go to the QR code, you can access the questionnaire, and you can see all the questionnaire through, and I mean, it's open for anyone. So let me start telling you a little bit about the data. What we have there is the analysis of almost 3,000 students. More than 1/3 of these students come from the 2nd year of baccalaureate, and 2/3 come from the 4th year of secondary education. Why did we want these students? Because in both cases, students are in the final year of their studies. Secondary education is compulsory in Spain, so in the 4th year, they will have to continue their studies or just drop and go to the job market. And in the 4th year of baccalaureate, they are entitled to finish this course and go to university. So in these 2 courses, we found it very appropriate to ask them, what are you, or what do you think you will use your bilingual education for? Because they will be in the final year. So it's time to look back and say, I have done a program on bilingual education. Let me think what for and what will be this useful for in my near future. So these are the students. And as you can see, we have 43.98, almost 44% of male, and the rest are female. So a little bit more female, but it's quite balanced. We have almost, the same amount of students from male and female. The first dimension is mobility, as you can see there. And this data reveal that students in bilingual programs participate more in international programs than students in non-bilingual programs. A very interesting data. Bilingualism makes students more eager, more happy to participate in international programs, for example, Erasmus in our case. We therefore deduce that there is a positive relationship between participation in a bilingual program and participation in international programs. It seems that the language is a connection between these things, bilingualism and internationalization. Another interesting fact emerged in these sections. In all programs, the majority of students who have participated in international program would do so again. And this figure is the highest among bilingual students. So bilingual students who participate would like to participate more in international programs. Very interesting, the language as a connector to internationalization. In this data that I'm showing you also on mobility indicate that students incorporate mobility into their life plans, regardless of the type of program they attend. In the 4 questions analyzed, I see myself in the future living abroad, working abroad, studying abroad, or just traveling abroad for pleasure. In the 4 questions, the students in bilingual programs show higher percentages than students in non-bilingual programs. So always bilinguals, you will see across all data, they outperform non-bilinguals, which makes think the language is probably a predictor in these dimensions. This section is a clear indication that the importance that the students surveyed attached to the impact of languages in relation to their international mobility, which they see as clearly linked to their motivation to travel, to the security offered by language proficiency, and of course, to the impact the language proficiency has on the destination of the international mobility. Therefore, we can say that international mobility correlates, means goes together with language proficiency. On the other hand, the students in bilingual programs show higher percentages than students in non-bilingual programs in all the items, and therefore it's confirmed that the participation in this type of program improves the perception on the usefulness of languages for international mobility in all aspects: motivation, security, and to a lesser extent, its impact on the destination. On the other hand, it should be noted that the 3 items, it is motivation, security, and influence, increase from non-bilinguals to bilingual. Finally, it's highly significant that unevocally and in almost the same percentage in all program types, participation in international programs improves the students' perception of their creativity, critical thinking, social skills, teamwork, digital competence, autonomous learning, and their feeling of belonging to the European Union. Quite interesting. And the only difference between those students is the language, because they are doing parallel programs, bilingual, non-bilinguals, and we are comparing also the same students. Then let me go to the analysis of data on the perception of the impact of bilingual education on employability. It is unequivocal, since students in bilingual programs recognize that their bilingual education has a positive impact because students can work in what they want, obtain a better salary, have the possibility of promotion, achieve social prestige, find a job more quickly, find a job abroad, create professional collaboration network, and create competitive profiling social networks. Meaning, students perceive the benefit of languages for their employability. And always, as I said before, bilingual students outperform scores in non-bilinguals. Let me say that the 2 items with the highest values are, in that order, finding a job abroad, 8.5 points, and finding a job more quickly, 8 points. So students find a good advantage, the language and the proficiency and the dexterity of language that they have for employability. Then the analysis of data on the impact of student participation in bilingual programs on intercultural competence, again, is very clear, is unequivocal. Since in both types of programs, bilingual and non-bilingual, students recognize that language proficiency has a positive impact on their feelings as citizens of the world. This is very interesting. It will favor their understanding and acceptance of others, improve the ability to adapt to diverse cultural contexts, make them want to live in a foreign country, broaden their knowledge of other cultures, allow them to have access to cultural products, improve their empathy, and positively influence their way of being and being in the world as an intercultural individual. Exactly as it happened before in the employability dimension, in this dimension, bilinguals outperforms non-bilinguals in the 9 scale on the intercultural competence, and they increase always from non-bilinguals to bilinguals. The 2 items with the highest score are in this order. It will allow me to have more access to cultural products when we find 8.13 points, 8.13, and it will broaden my knowledge of other cultures, 7.81 points. Very interesting. So, I mean, bilinguals can see the value of languages for culture, and not only for culture, for intercultural competence, because it will broaden my knowledge of other culture. Then, having to do with the languages that students use, we have found that students use fluently, the students report using fluently in all programs, English, followed by Spanish and French. So they can see that they have a good command of English. It's because of their bilingual training. In bilingual programs, the difference between accredited and non-accredited students in official accreditation, such as, for example, TOEFL or Cambridge in our context, is smaller than among non-bilingual students who, for the most part, do not have an official language accreditation. So again, another reason to be proud of being part of a bilingual program is that students get accreditation on official languages. And the percentage of those with an official language accreditation is clearly higher among students in bilingual programs. The language in which most students have official accreditation is, of course, English, followed by Spanish and French. So we have many students who were foreign students doing this program. This data indicates that students perceive a balance between oral and written use of the second language in the bilingual classroom, as well as the benefit of their participation in bilingual programs to learn other languages. As was the case for the 3 previous areas, the 3 items in the area of plurilingual competence increase from non-bilingual to bilinguals. In the both types of programs, students enroll in the program. They recognize that the participation in bilingual program has a positive impact on language proficiency because no items scores below 7.1. Let me remind, the scale was in a 10-point scale, so scoring 7 is a very high scoring. This block is the one with the best percentages of the 4 analyzed, and it's what the case for the 3 previous areas. The 7 items from the plurilingual competence increase from non-bilinguals to bilinguals, always the same pattern. So I'm reaching the end of my speech, and let me reflect a little bit on this data. Bilingual programs, although not specifically designed for students to improve their competence in, for example, employability or intercultural competence, students perceive the benefit of language in this area, which is very interesting. I don't know how it is here, but in Spain, in no bilingual program, you can find a course entitled Intercultural Competence or Employability, or we will teach you how to write your resume, your curriculum vitae. Never. But students can see that they have possibilities to have better employment, to have better salaries, to work abroad, and they see themselves as having better intercultural competence just because of the language. Very interesting. There is no specific explicit training. It's just things that the language brings implicitly. On the other hand, scientific literature indicates that CLIL, the official bilingual approach in Europe, these CLIL programs show difficulties in implementing the intercultural axis. They always say that this is the problematic or the difficult C. We have content, communication, cognition, and culture. And out of these 4 C's, the most difficult, the most problematic is culture. However, surveyed bilingual program students in this research project indicate that they feel more empathetic. They feel they have the ability to understand others' perspectives and that they are global citizens, which is scores that surpass students from non-bilingual programs. And let me insist, they do not have specific training on intercultural education. It's just something that the language brings. This data can be used by educational schools, centers, or institutions to, on the one hand, understand the utility that their students, who are the users of bilingual programs, foresee in the education they are receiving. On the other hand, this survey may have prompted bilingual program students to reflect, perhaps for the first time in their lives, on the purposes of their bilingual training with this depth, seriousness, and structure. We think that this has a washback effect. And finally, this data can be used by educational schools to somehow include modification in the structure of their programs or including specific courses to teach students how to write their CV or how to improve their intercultural competencies, etc. Because they say clearly that language has this effect, has this impact in their lives. So, my first conclusions, and they are not real conclusions, they are, questions to you. And I would like to listen to your opinions from your perspective. Do you think bilingual education has a future? According to the opinion of my students in Spain, I would say that the answer to these questions from the Spanish viewpoint is unequivocally yes. Bilingual education has a future because the users of bilingual education, the students enrolled in bilingual programs, they clearly discover not just benefits, but also practical applicability of the competencies their multi and plurilingual education provides them with. So there is no longer simply, this is no longer simply about achieving a certain language proficiency level, which I may say is almost a last century concept. It is something different. In this 21st century paradigm, it's about acquiring linguistic competence through content. That is, managing information and developing skills via a second language. The students recognize that this language enhancement, understood in the sense that Ofelia Garcia describes, opens up magnificent and expansive opportunities, improved employability, better professional prospects, potential salaries increases, broader worldview, etc., that we have been discussing here. So this is my first question to you. Then the second question, how does it have a future? In the way that language offers a real window to a different reality. People who speak several languages have the opportunity of seeing reality in different ways. So, shall we continue on this path? Students say, yes, please continue in this path because we think it will be useful. So, what do the teaching staff what should we, the teaching staff, do? I would like to listen to your opinions. And finally, these are the 3 questions that I have for you for the small small groups that Eduardo is going to create in a minute. The first question is, do you think bilingual education has a future in your context? Can you elaborate a little bit on the reasons why bilingual education has or does not have a future in your context? The second question would be, do you think we teachers have a role on the opinions students have on bilingual education? Can we, influence in a way or another, either positively or negatively, the way they think about bilingual education? And finally, are there other users for bilingual education you can think of that we haven't thought of in my research project? I would like to listen from you. Finally, I have left 3 further readings with Eduardo that probably he has uploaded in the Moodle, in the course website that you have, so that if you want to read more, you have there more information from us. And upon your return from the breakout rooms, we will be able to have your questions, tasks, reflection, and we will be able to discuss a little bit, right? So before I finish, let me thank you from the deep of my heart for just being here. It was lovely to be with you, and I'm really looking forward to listening to your opinions,